Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of this show. My guest today is Tim Fitzpatrick. He's the president of Rialto Marketing. He's got 20 plus years of entrepreneurial experience. And so we're going to tell his story, share his story. He's going to tell his story to us about all his ups and downs in entrepreneurship over the years. And of course, this episode brought to you by Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients referrals and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. And you can learn all about how we do it at rise25.com. All right, Tim, pleasure to have you here today. And you're a Bay Area guy where I live here in the Bay Area, originally transplanted to the mountains of Colorado, I believe.
Yep.
And you grew up here in the Bay Area and graduated with a math degree from UC Berkeley. And so like every other mathematician out there, looked for probably entry-level math jobs, probably thought, there's not that much out there. And you end up going kind of into the family business, which is how you got introduced to entrepreneurship. Tell me a little bit about what that was like. Because it ended up being a really positive experience for you, which isn't the story that you always hear when people go and work for their dad, right? Sometimes I've heard some horror stories. So tell me about it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, John. I'm excited to dig into this with you today. So, when I graduated as a math major, I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. My dad had been an entrepreneur for quite some time, and I knew he needed some help in his distribution company. He had no full-time employees at that point. And I was like, hey, why don't I help you for the summer while I figure out what the heck I want to do? So that's what I did. And John, after 3 months, I was hooked, man. We were distributing consumer electronics. We were selling home theater equipment, speakers, DVD players, TVs, projectors, distributed audio systems. It was toys, and
yeah.
So I loved it. Because I was the first full-time employee, I was doing everything. I was shipping, I was receiving, I was handling accounts receivable and operations, sales, marketing, was doing all of it. And I just got the bug, man. I was soaking up information like a sponge. I was enjoying what I was doing. It didn't feel like work. And so at the end of the 3 months, I just said, hey, I would love to keep doing this if you would, be open to having me do it. And fortunately, he said yes. We had another silent partner at the time. And it worked. Here's why I tell you why I think it worked really well. One, my dad, trusted me. He knew that I was a hard worker. He knew that I was a capable person. And, he knew that I would do the right thing. He also gave me a fair amount of latitude to learn. It's like, he wasn't afraid looking over my shoulder every day going, oh my God, he's going to make a mistake. He's going to make a mistake. No, he gave me that freedom and that latitude. And he was there to help guide and mentor me as I learned the ropes. And I think because of that, it worked really, really well. And, for the most part, I was handling the distribution side of the business and he was handling his rep business, they were related, but they were separate businesses. And, because of that, it worked extremely well.
Sounds like it's almost like you were running your own, operation with the benefit of being part of a larger operation in a sense.
Yes. And he was there from a strategic standpoint. When I got stuck and I wasn't sure how to handle something, he was there to help guide and mentor me. The other interesting thing too about it is I just got to see a completely different side of him than I did as a kid growing up. And frankly, it was a side of him that I respect. And I was just so glad and so fortunate to be able to see, because he had been in the consumer electronics industry for a long time. And every time I met somebody that knew him, they always said all these great things about him, and he was well respected. People saw him as somebody that had a ton of integrity. And it was just a really interesting side of my dad that I never would have had visibility to.
What was it like for you growing up with your dad being an entrepreneur? Because sometimes you hear people say that leads them to be not wanting to go into entrepreneurship because they see the ups and downs of their parents' experience.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, John. I I don't know anything different. What I can tell you is growing up, I never felt like, oh my gosh, where is my dad? Like he's gone, he's off doing his thing. He, as a rep, he would travel the Northern California territory. So there were some weeks where he was gone for a night or two while he was out calling on some of his dealers, but he was always there. My soccer games, I don't remember a soccer game he ever missed. I mean, I'm sure he missed a few, but yeah, my dad was always there for my brother and I. And, if there were those there's always ups and downs.
Yeah.
My parents insulated us from that. And, so as a kid,
you don't remember any periods where you had cutbacks or anything like that?
No, it wasn't that kind of stuff. They always shielded us from that whenever it happened, which, I don't know. For me, I think that's a good thing. I mean, as a kid, I don't know if you really should see those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I had that experience. My father getting laid off 3 separate times when he wasn't an entrepreneur. He worked for different companies, but it definitely affects you, good or bad, right? Sometimes you can't. You can't. I've heard stories from people where a business went under and there's no way they can hide their kids from it.
Yeah.
So for you, so you kind of were exposed to it from a young age. Did your dad in any way groom you or prepare you for that at all?
No, he didn't. And I think deep down, I think he's appreciative that I did end up getting involved because it was something that we could share together. But he was never, he was never pushing it, right? My parents were always, hey, like, you need to do what's going to make you happy, right? And I appreciate that because I think we all know people who went down paths professionally because it was what they think their parents wanted, and most of the time that doesn't end well because they're not happy. They're doing things for other people rather than for themselves, and that's no way to live your life as far as I'm concerned.
We were talking beforehand. You said your dad was an entrepreneur selling consumer electronics. It sounds like there were some different, the business evolved and had some different elements to it, a distribution side. There was also a mastermind group. So talk a little bit about how it evolved.
Yeah. So I think my dad had his rep company. For those that don't know what a manufacturer's rep is, they're basically a middleman. They represent various factories or manufacturers, and they go out and sell those goods to businesses. So like a Panasonic or something, instead of having their own sales force, or maybe in addition to their own sales force, they have independent authorized representatives, third parties who have their own companies who go out and sell it to retailers like Best Buy. Okay. Yeah. And because of that, so for example, my dad sold products to the Good Guys when the Good Guys were in
I remember
California.
The Good Guys, Circuit City.
Right? Circuit City. So they would call on people like that, and the manufacturers would pay them a percentage of orders for doing that. And so, some manufacturers have their own sales force, some don't. And so he represented lines like in the car audio days, he was an Alpine dealer. I mean, most people have heard of Alpine.
Those are sweet car stereos back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, it was big.
That company even in business anymore? They were great. Little shiny, colorful buttons.
Yeah, we could go down a rabbit hole there. But, so he was a manufacturer's rep. I know that he started a company that he called the Ad Company, which was related to that. I don't know all the ins and outs and the details of that, but I know it was a really good idea, but they had a very difficult time getting traction, and that ended up fizzling out. But when he started the distribution company, there was a shift in the market, and there was a big shift to businesses or dealers doing custom installation work. People weren't going into a stereo shop going, hey, I need a receiver and 2 speakers and a CD player. They were saying, hey, I want a home theater. Really? Well, what's your room like? Is it 10 by 10? Is it open? Does it have high ceilings? So they were the needs for the products on each job were different, which makes it really hard to inventory products, right? So it's hard to buy direct from a manufacturer, bring all this inventory into your location, and then hope you have the right inventory. Much easier to serve that through a distribution model. Just in time, hey, I need this, this, and this on this job. Cool, perfect. So a lot of the reps across the country started distribution companies. So that's how he started the distribution company. And he started about a year or two before I graduated. And then I got involved.
Got it.
And that's kind of how it started. But then where our distribution company really took off was all these relationships that my dad had with other reps. The reps started talking to, we were talking to each other. Hey, what kind of problems are you running into? How did you solve them? Right. And the first thing that we started doing was we wanted to white label our own product. And so we pooled our resources together. We wouldn't have been able to buy these products by ourselves, but collectively as a whole, we were
white label your own electronics product.
It was actually wire and cable. So we started importing wire and cable from China.
And why did you choose that product? Did you see some kind of hole or opening?
Yes, there was a gap in the market. We did not want to buy what was already existing. So we created our own brand and started importing it from China.
Got it.
And, you got to bring in containers. I mean, we as a
cash intensive and you have to put the money up front. Right. So that's a big shift in the model. As a sole
distributor, that would have been a roadblock for us. But when we combined forces, we were able to do it.
Got it.
And so it started there. And then we were like, gosh, we actually, there's power in numbers here. We need to actually start joining forces. And so the individual distributors in each market, we formed another company, which was Avid. And that allowed us to start to approach manufacturers like Panasonic, like Samsung, that probably wouldn't have even talked to us as an individual distributor.
And you were approaching them in order to warehouse their materials, their supplies, their inventory?
To represent and sell their stuff. And so...
so not just warehousing, but selling also.
Correct.
Got it.
So selling all their stuff. The market we were in was very fractured. A lot of really small dealers. They didn't advertise. They had commercial locations. So a manufacturer could not effectively call on that. It could only be effectively serviced through distribution. And so we allowed that we were able to go to them and say, hey, we can give you nationwide access into this market tomorrow.
Because of the reach. Interesting. Yeah. It's the same argument and rationale behind why we as a company have been talking with other smaller podcast production companies, combining forces as well. I'm curious though, for you, what was it like combining forces with all these different, independent people that were used to being independent and making one company, who had decision making? It sounds like kind of there could be leadership by committee, which doesn't always work out well. Like, how did you manage all that? The management of the company, the leadership of the company? Yeah,
that is a really good question. So the way it was structured, we each had our own individual distribution companies in our respective geographic locations, Northern California, Southern California, Pacific Northwest, Rocky Mountains. When we formed Avid was actually formed as an LLC, and each of the individual distributor partners were members of the LLC. And you're going down the right path. There was a management committee. There was four members that were part of the management committee. And, I'm not going to tell you it was perfect. It wasn't. There were times where I think things were a little bit challenging here and there, but they were the ones that kind of drove things. But then there was constant communication to all the other members as to what was going on. We met on a quarterly basis, if I remember correctly. It's been a while now, but regularly throughout the year, we would all get together, talk about what was going on, what's going on in our businesses. And that's another area where it kind of acted. Not only did we have a company that we were building, but it was a mastermind of other people that were doing the exact same thing we were.
There's real benefit to that because you've got all those
Huge.
different brains, people experiencing similar types of challenges and working
Exactly.
together. Yeah.
And some people had already had those problems. So
Right.
it wasn't, they helped us solve those problems quicker and get to where we want to go faster.
Yeah.
So there was a ton of leverage, and there was a ton of collaboration and sharing to help us all be better.
Well, this makes total sense from, math major to consumer electronics to warehousing, logistics and distribution to a marketing firm after that. So how did you go from the warehouse and facility operations with Avid to your own marketing firm?
So the short story is we were acquired in 2005. So the company that acquired us bought all 12 distribution companies and Avid, the holding company as well. And we all got rolled up. I had a 3-year contract with the company that bought us. And then after that, I decided to move. That's when I moved from Northern California to the Denver metro area. I was still working for the company that bought us at that time. And this is 2008. We all know what happened in 2008, 2009 timeframe. We got bought by a public company. So in early 2009, I got laid off. Like they closed 30% of the branch locations that we had across the country. And I was like, oh God, well, I've been, what am I going to do now? And so I took a little bit of time off and I decided to get into residential real estate. I'd always been interested in real estate. And I'm like, gosh, this will be a good way to learn it. And so I started door knocking houses that were in foreclosure. I mean, that was a huge opportunity in that market at that point. And man,
and what was
John,
the plan to try and buy properties in foreclosure for less expensive, fix them up and sell them?
No, I was a realtor at that point. So I was actually trying to get short sales, right? And
get listings.
I was trying to get listings, get the bank to approve a sale for less than what it was worth.
Yeah. Which I did a bit of that when I was practicing law back then. That was no easy task.
Oh man, it was, you know what? I learned a ton. I was putting myself outside my comfort zone every damn day. I had never knocked on a door in my entire life.
You were knocking on doors of people that the properties were in foreclosure. Yes. That is really hard because oftentimes there's a sob story behind it. They lost their job. A lot of times the last thing people do is, at least back then, was not pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
What I found a lot of times people would pay everything else, hold on to making that mortgage payment on time. And then unfortunately, these big banks didn't reward them for that loyalty at all. It backfired on them.
No. So it was an interesting time, but I wasn't enjoying it. Like I mentioned to you, when I was in distribution, it felt like I didn't work. I loved it. And I just went and did that every day. With real estate, for me, it was not like that. And I got to a place where I was waking up, not just Sunday night, like every day going, oh my God, I have got to do this again. And so at that point I was like, I got to shift gears because this is not it. And that's when I started to get involved in marketing, which, has been I'm not going to tell you that's been a straight path either. Marketing is so broad. It really took me a while to hone in on where my skills are, what I really enjoy doing and what I want to continue to do. So it took me a while to go down that path, but that's where I'm at today, helping people with their marketing efforts and helping them accelerate growth.
And we're recording this in May of 2023. And one of the hot topics these days is AI, ChatGPT. Everyone's been talking about it. What are your thoughts on how that's going to affect the world of marketing?
Yeah, take out the crystal ball. It is, God, it's evolving and changing so rapidly right now. I think it's important to keep an eye on where things are going. It's definitely gonna change a lot of industries. Marketing, where I see most of the things happening with marketing right now are, using it to create the basic, foundations of content. I don't think it's at the place where you can rely on it to just do everything. I'm sure lazy people will do that, but I think the quality is not going to be where it needs to be. But I think it's a tool that we can use to make our jobs more efficient and more effective. So, we're using it for that. We actually have some strategy projects coming up where we're going to test it and start to use it just to gather basic data and basic information. I think for that, it's going to help us gather a lot of information much faster. And then we just need to validate and proof it. Is it right? Are there things that we're missing? Or,
Right.
Hey, are there other things that we need to search for to add to this? But I think there's so many opportunities for it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I can see some of the more tactical sides of marketing where there are entry-level people doing that work now. I think at some point AI could take a lot of that over. So I think there are going to be some jobs that are going to disappear, but I think there's going to be other opportunities that are created because of that.
That's what frequently happens, right? New technology comes along. Everyone's afraid that it's going to take away jobs, but oftentimes it ends up creating a whole new industry that we didn't even anticipate.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's who knows where it's going to go, but it's pretty powerful. If you start playing with it, there's a lot of information that it can, that it can pull. So
for sure. Yeah. And for now, it seems like summarizing a lot of content is one area. It can be really helpful. Researching and gathering, collating information is another one. I'm curious though. I want to ask about, you mentioned that relationships are so important with Avid, with building that company and the previous company when you worked with your father. When you started in the marketing world, did you have previous relationships that you leveraged in that new business? Or was it like kind of starting off completely fresh, new industry without a lot of expertise? And if so, how did you do that?
Yeah, it was, I was starting from square one.
Yeah.
So what helped me there is finding people that were where I wanted to be, or resources that were out there. So for example, John Jantz has been with Duct Tape Marketing.
Yeah.
Has been
John's great.
in small business marketing for years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
His Rolodex.
Were you a certified duct tape marketing person at one point?
Yeah. I still am. Right.
Yeah,
I still
cool.
am.
Great.
So I'm part of his duct tape marketing consultant network. Connecting with people like him it helped my learning curve speed up significantly. And it helped me leverage a lot of the resources that they already had. Now, do I do everything the way that they do? No, I don't. But a lot of the fundamentals that he talks about, the methodologies, really have made sense to me. And so as I've continued to kind of refine my approach to marketing and how I help people, where I need help in those areas, I find the people that are really doing cool stuff there. And I take that and I use it and I leverage it.
Yeah, John is great. I've had him on the podcast, I think 2 separate times, and did a dinner that he came to once in Santa Barbara a few years back. So it was great connecting with him face to face. Just such a great, genuine guy.
Yes.
I think he also lives part-time in Colorado, doesn't he?
He actually lives in Colorado full time now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great guy. Well, this has been a lot of fun. And where can people go to learn more about you, Tim?
The best place, John, is to head on over to rialtomarketing.com, which is RIALTO marketing.com. The other thing I always make available to people is over at revenue-roadblock-scorecard.com. So I help people remove their revenue roadblocks. If they want to discover which of the 9 revenue roadblocks is slowing down their growth, they can do that over at revenue-roadblock-scorecard.com.
Excellent. And definitely check out also the Rialto Marketing podcast. You've done over 230 episodes. You were kind enough to have me as a guest on the show. Really cool. Well, that's you are in the probably top 1% with over 200 episodes. So nice work.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
All right, Tim. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.